the incoming missiles, ballistic missiles, but it's not hermetic. So a lot of Israelis have been spending time in the bomb shelters this morning, and presumably will be back in the bomb shelters as those air raid sirens sound. Also, some important news to bring you from Saudi Arabia, from Riyadh. The Saudi Foreign Ministry says that the Iranian attacks on Riyadh and eastern regions in the country have been condemned. The Foreign Ministry says the attacks came despite Riyadh saying that it will not allow its airspace to be used against Iran. Saudi Arabia, just one of several Arab countries that has been targeted this morning. Let's go to Washington and speak to my colleague Helena Humphrey, who is there. We've just had a statement, an interesting statement, from the minority leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, who says Iran is a bad actor and must be aggressively confronted, but the Trump administration must seek authorization for the preemptive use of military force that constitutes an act of war. So it does not sound at the outset, Helena, that this is that there is bipartisan support for what is going on.
Christian, I've been looking at this range of reaction from lawmakers throughout the course of the morning as America wakes up to this news. And I think these are the two prongs of reaction that you're seeing right now. You know, many Republicans and Democrats have been pointing out the role Iran has played in the region for a long time. Donald Trump in that video essentially has said that this was about ending what he called a campaign of bloodshed, including against Americans, going back to 1979. He spoke about the Iran hostage crisis. But then, as you mentioned in that statement from Hakeem Jeffries, a note of caution, more than a note of caution from the minority leader in the House, essentially saying that this has to be done with congressional approval. And I will say that when I first saw these strikes at around 2 a.m. local time, by about an hour later, we'd started to see reaction trickle in. And we got that similar message from the Republican lawmaker Thomas Massie. He's a critic of Donald Trump. But what he said was that this is an act of war unauthorized by Congress. It has not been approved by Congress. And since then, that argument has been building. We've heard from the Democrat lawmaker Ro Khanna. He has basically said that he is urging lawmakers to come back, to come to the Hill on Monday and to vote on a war powers resolution, to put their name on the record about where they stand on this, and then also to vote on a resolution limiting the ability of the United States to carry out this without congressional approval. I mean, certainly when it does seem to be, a really significant operation, Donald Trump saying that not only it could last a number of days, he was very clear in that video. He said that we could see US casualties. It was an 8-minute video that he put out. He is now, we understand, in Mar-a-Lago. I know my colleague Bernd Debusmann has been travelling, and he is trying to get answers with regards to when we will hear from the president further. For the time being, we haven't had a set time on that.
Yeah, you talk about the duration, Helena. There's some important statements being made at the moment. The Israelis are saying that this is on a completely different scale to the 12-day war last June, which does tend to suggest we could be talking weeks rather than days. The Iranian foreign minister has just commented as well, says we don't need anybody for our defence. We are capable enough to defend ourselves. So some strong talk from the Iranians today. And of course, the retaliation is there for all to see. How is the MAGA movement within America going to react to this? Because Donald Trump, of course, was highly critical of previous presidents that got involved in conflicts in the Middle East and campaigned on bringing peace to the region.
That's such an important point to raise, I think, particularly for Americans waking up to this morning, because, yes, Christian, in media circles, in diplomatic circles, of course, there has been speculation for days, if not months, with regards to whether Donald Trump would strike. But for ordinary Americans waking up today who haven't seen statements from the likes of the US Embassy in Jerusalem urging non-essential personnel, for example, to leave, they will be surprised by this. And essentially, we don't know how long this could go on for, but all of the emphasis has been from regional players that it could go on for quite some time. Donald Trump, clearly in his statement, was trying to lay the groundwork for that. But, let's just go back to that campaign trail for a second go around in the White House from Donald Trump. He had essentially promised, he had vowed for fewer foreign entanglements, not more. And, essentially said that he was campaigning against foreign wars, that he would be, there wouldn't be these forever wars, that he would solve the war in Ukraine, for example, within 24 hours, which he's since said, is proving more tricky. But instead, what have we seen when it comes to Venezuela, for example? Now, with regards to what we are seeing in Iran, and I think for his base, of course, that just begs the question, what is this more muscular approach that we're seeing when it comes to foreign policy? For many people, that is not what they voted for.
Helena, for the moment, thank you very much. We'll come back to you through the day. Thank you for that. I was in Geneva on Thursday, of course, for those talks around the nuclear programme. The Iranian Foreign Ministry statement, which is ongoing, says Iran has bitter experience from talking to the United States. There were supposed to be technical talks in Vienna on Monday and then high-level talks later in the week. But as I made the point on Thursday, there was every chance, as we saw last summer, that the talks would be preempted by military action. And here we are. Let's go to the Middle East and speak to our correspondent Hugo Bechega, who is in Jerusalem. You should probably bring us up to speed, Hugo, if you would, with the events this morning and what you've witnessed.
Yeah, Christian, so it is just after 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, and we heard about an hour ago air raid sirens again here in Jerusalem, and the sound of loud explosions of air defenses activated, possibly intercepting missiles that had been fired by Iran. And in the last hour there have been air raid alerts also in central parts of Israel and in Tel Aviv, but there haven't been reports of hits, of casualties, damage. Obviously, this is a country with a very sophisticated, successful air defense system. So I remember being here last year during the 12-day war, and the Israeli military was then extremely successful in intercepting the vast majority of the missiles that had been fired by Iran. And today, some Israeli officials are saying that dozens of missiles had been fired by Iran as part of this response following these American and Israeli attacks. Now, we've heard part of what President Trump had to say, trying to explain what is happening here today, the start of, as he described it, as major combat operations in Iran. And we also had a statement by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Obviously, Netanyahu has spent decades talking about what he has described as the